Let's talk about how to lose the last few pounds around your waistline. Welcome back to the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'm excited to dive into this topic today because it's a loaded one. This is one of the most common frustrations that people deal with when trying to lose weight, right? You go through this journey, experience some progress, and then it feels like those last few pounds, that last bit of progress you want to make so that you can transition out of dieting, transition out of a calorie deficit, and do something else that's maybe more enjoyable. It just feels like that whole process takes forever. And this is one of the most common questions that I get. I get it from clients all the time. I get it in DMs on Instagram and other social media platforms all the time. And so I think we're going to really make use of our time here and just answer the question in depth to explain common mistakes that people make and why we get to this point where it is so challenging to lose those last few pounds, what is required to actually be able to do it successfully, and also just thinking about, is it worth it? Yeah, it's going to be a big piece to this puzzle too that we're going to break down, and I'm excited to dive into all of it. I hope you are too. So real quick, before we dive into this question, if you're not subscribed already, make sure that you do wherever you are listening or watching this podcast. The video episodes of these podcasts go on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/ChrisGatesFitness. You can also subscribe to the audio version of these podcasts on literally any streaming platform. I know some of the most popular ones are like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Audible. Wherever you listen to podcasts, my podcast is there. Just search for Chris Gates Fitness. Additionally, I'm on social media everywhere at Chris Gates Fitness. So if you ever have a question that you would like me to answer on podcast, I'd be happy to just send it my way. And make sure you're following along wherever you can so that you don't miss an episode. But let's dive into the topic of the day, which once again is just talking about how to lose those last few pounds around your waistline. And for starters, let's talk about why this is so hard. And I think it's important for you to understand that it's completely normal to get to this point where you're wondering, okay, I can't seem to get exactly to that finish line, exactly to that end point, exactly to that place that I want to end up in. Why? Why am I not able to get there? Why is this so challenging? Why do I have these last 3, 4, 5 pounds that I feel like I want to lose across my waistline, my midsection, my belly? Why is this so difficult? First off, the truth of this is that I have never met anybody personally who has ever said, I don't think I could lose any more body fat off my waist. I've just never met a person who said that. Even like the most in shape, fit people that that I know would still probably admit like, hey, if I could lose a little bit extra off the love handles, extra off the midsection, I'd be okay with that. I'd be happy with that. I would love to be able to accomplish that. And I know personally for myself too, I basically always feel that way. I don't get hyper focused on it, but I've had abs for as long as I can remember. That doesn't mean that there's nothing else I want to shed off of my midsection. Absolutely. I would love to lose a few more pounds there. So this is something everybody deals with. You are not alone. You are not caught in this situation as like a unique outlier, the one person who can't figure it out. Everybody goes through this. And as we go through a weight loss journey, getting into a calorie deficit, losing body fat, often what happens is those first pounds come off pretty easily. Let's say you want to lose 25 pounds. The first 15 to 20 of those are going to come off easily. Maybe easy is not the right word, but consistently, effectively, efficiently. I think those words probably describe it pretty well, because in the early stages, it should be relatively predictable to be able to start losing body fat. The thing about fitness, and this goes across the board, whether we're talking about losing body fat or building muscle or building strength or building endurance, anything that you want to accomplish from a fitness perspective, I say this all the time, but it actually tends to be like one of the worst investments you could make. Hold on. One of the worst investments you could make if we're thinking about the return on investment you get for the work that you put in. And by that, the results. Okay. I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I don't mean that working on yourself has a poor ROI, that getting healthier, that lifting weights, that managing your diet effectively is not going to get you positive returns. It absolutely always will. But when we're thinking about the tangible results you can get by losing weight, by seeing your physique improve, by building muscle and getting stronger, any of those goals, it's the opposite of the stock market, right? Where it's if you just regularly invest in your finances, right? Putting money into a 401k or an IRA or something like that's something that slowly compounds and builds over time and gets bigger and bigger. With fitness, the longer you get into it and the more progress you make, what actually ends up happening is that same level of effort, that same level of intensity and attention to detail, as you get consistent with it over months and years, it actually returns fewer results on the scale or in terms of the amount of weight that you can add because you're getting stronger. As time goes on, you're going to see slower and slower progress, fewer and fewer tangible results like that because it gets harder, right? The more you want to make progress, after you've made a ton of progress, it means you're going to have to work even harder than you did before. It means you're going to have to pay attention to even more of the details than you ever did before. It's an investment that's backwards. Now, all of that is to say, I would never encourage you to get to a certain point and stop. Okay, so I don't want this to come off that way. It's just the fact of the matter. And most people who experience the most progress from a fitness perspective do so because they find joy in the process. You find it really enjoyable to have those little incremental wins where you're able to add 5 pounds over a month or over 5 or 6 weeks to a certain lift. You're able to, over the course of a month, lose a pound, right? Like after you get really deep into this stuff, it's important to find joy in that process of achieving those tangible results by going through the habits that you've built and just maintaining those habits. So the return on investment decreases as time goes on, which can be really frustrating. And so if you're fixated on how fast the weight came off at the beginning of your journey, and now you're looking at why is it coming off so much more slowly, you could get really defeated. You could get upset. You might think about quitting the entire process. And if nothing else, maybe it leaves you confused, wondering why it's so much more difficult now than it was then. But it's because of what I just explained. The more progress you can't make progress forever. You can't just continue to make progress forever, right? So the more progress you make, the harder you're going to have to work and the slower it's going to come to make additional progress on top of that. And I don't want you to think that something potentially changed or that you're potentially broken or that you need to overhaul your entire plan, because especially if you've gotten to this point where you have seen a bunch of progress, you have lost the 15 to 20 pounds, and now you just want to get from 20 to 25, everything you've done to this point has worked. So you have a plan that's pretty darn effective. That doesn't mean we need to overhaul the entire thing. There's probably just like little tweaks, little details that need to be adjusted, and little things that you can do to fine-tune the process that will eventually help you get there. But don't think that everything is broken, okay? The last thing I want you to do is overreact to something that feels frustrating when in reality, what you've done to this point is pretty remarkable, and you've done a lot of things that have been working. And on that note, let's talk about some common mistakes that lead to people spinning their wheels and never really being able to lose those last few pounds. And one of those would be dropping calories too fast or too far. I think logically what people come to the conclusion of is, okay, I lost a bunch of weight, the weight's not coming off anymore, and so that must mean I need to eat fewer calories, because in order to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. And if I was in a calorie deficit and I lost a bunch of weight, but then now I'm not losing weight, maybe it means I'm not in a calorie deficit anymore and I need to further reduce calories to get back into a calorie deficit. Sometimes that is the case, but oftentimes that's not the first place to start in terms of making tweaks or adjustments, okay? And unfortunately, what a lot of people do, and the mistake that they make is, one, they have 3 to 5 days of the scale not going down and they decide, okay, I need to reduce calories. That is not enough time to figure out if you're actually in a plateau. If you think about all the different ways that, you know, your body weight can spike up or down, when we're talking about on a day-to-day basis or in such a short window of time like that, a week or less, more carbs than usual, more sodium than usual, high stress, poor sleep, poor digestion, changes in routine, all of these things can lead to water weight retention or just food weight being in your system that show up on the scale but are not increasing body fat. You know what I mean? So we need to ride it out a bit longer than that to get a feel for what truly is occurring and truly understand whether you're stalled with your weight or you're just normal and your weight is eventually going to go down if you can remain consistent. Okay, so what people often do is they see that, they're like, I'm not losing weight. I need to keep losing weight. So I'm going to remove 500, 700 calories from my diet, which is typically a massive jump for most people and typically completely unnecessary. That is one of the biggest mistakes people make, because then when you make that mistake and you cut calories severely like that, what it's going to do is lead to this entire process probably flaming out pretty quick, because that many calories that you're not allowed to eat anymore means your diet is going to be much more restrictive. It's going to be a lot less sustainable. And if it's not sustainable, then you won't sustain it. You're going to end up burning out because you're creating an environment to make the progress that you want that is just awful. You're going to dread it. You're going to wish you had all of your favorite foods. You're going to be starving. You're going to have no energy for your workouts. Your performance in your workouts is going to go down. It's going to be a whole mess, and you don't need to do that. But people get impatient, and so that's another common mistake tied into what we were just talking about. Don't get impatient. You have to understand that changes like this take time. And I'm sure that even if you're stuck in this plateau right now wondering, how do I lose these last few pounds around my midsection? Understand that you didn't lose the first 15 to 20 of them overnight. That still took time. That still probably took several months to do. So understand that if it gets harder as time goes on, and it already took several months for you to get to this point, then it's probably going to take several more months for you plugging away to get to that endpoint that you want. Another thing that I think people make a mistake with is over relying on either burning calories or trying to burn fat in a specific region of your body. And so by that, I mean, a lot of people will gravitate to doing lots of ab workouts and core routines, because if you want to lose weight in your midsection, you'd probably think, then I need to train my midsection. And take it from me, a guy who did thousands upon thousands of reps of ab work in my 20s to try to lose belly fat, and got into this situation exactly where I still wasn't happy and felt like I had more progress to make, but I couldn't make it. That's not the answer. This has been pretty well proven over the years that you can't spot reduce fat. You can't say, okay, I want to lose the body fat in my lower abs, so I'm going to do workouts that target my lower abs to lose it. That's not how it works. Your body doesn't operate that way. When you want to lose body fat, you need to get in a calorie deficit and understand that your body is going to lose body fat from different places throughout the body based on things that you can't control. You can't control your genetics. You can't control some of these predisposed factors that you're subject to. The only thing you can control is consistency with your diet to allow yourself to stay in a calorie deficit long enough for you to lose body fat from your arms, and then at some point your midsection, and then out of your legs, and then maybe in your hips. It's going to change and evolve as this entire process goes along, and you can't directly influence that. And cardio is not the answer either. Yes, you burn calories while doing cardio, which is great and which is helpful for a fat loss program, but cardio is actually never the focal point that I have with any of my clients that want to lose body fat. We actually use strength training as the focal point, because if you think about how we can get the body to adapt and change, yes, being in a calorie deficit is the key factor. And yes, burning some calories while doing cardio can make it a bit easier to get into that calorie deficit. But strength training is something that allows the body to prioritize muscle mass. Okay, so when you lift weights, when you're in a calorie deficit, it signals something to the body that's very important and powerful. It signals to the body the fact that, okay, Chris is doing these challenging things with his muscles. So the brain says, if we're in a calorie deficit and we're searching for energy here, right? Today, we don't have enough energy to get through the day because Chris is in a calorie deficit. We got to find that energy from somewhere else in the body to get through the day. Now, there's two main ways that your body can go searching for that energy to get through the day. It can use body fat, right? It can convert body fat into energy, which is how fat loss happens. But sometimes it can also convert muscle into energy, because it's another tissue in the body that the body can utilize if needed. Your body just wants to be efficient. It wants to get through the day. It wants to do it as easily as possible, okay? So when we know that you could lose body fat, you could lose some muscle mass, if we lift weights and we create that signaling effect throughout the body that says Chris is challenging his muscles, we need to prioritize muscle. We need to maintain muscle mass so that the next time he shows up to do this, it's going to be easier. It's going to be more efficient. Then we're not going to immediately burn muscle mass so that your body can get through the day. No, the body's going to prioritize that muscle mass and then look for something else to use in your calorie deficit to convert into energy, and it's going to go to body fat. So we can actually maximize the amount of body fat that you lose simply by doing a well-rounded strength training program. And now on top of that, when we are doing a well-rounded strength training program, we prioritize muscle mass, but if we do it the right way, we progressively overload, you could probably build muscle too. And so the more muscle you build, it builds up your metabolism, because the more muscle mass you have on your body, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. The more calories you burn at rest, the easier it's going to make fat loss over time. So, when you compare strength training to cardio, if you can actually use strength training to burn calories now and then burn even more in the future, it actually tends to be a more effective form of exercise for losing body fat. And so we build this muscle all throughout your body. And what that does is it builds your body up in this process, and it makes fat loss easier down the road. And don't get me wrong, including cardio is important. Cardio is part of all of my clients' programs for the most part. And we really try to view cardio more so as, once again, how can we build your body up? How can we build your health up? And how can we get the most health benefits throughout this process? And cardio obviously has a lot of really powerful health benefits when we think about cardiovascular health, heart health, and obviously the ways that moving your body through cardio can benefit you. And the last mistake that people often make is, if you think about just getting to this point, I've mentioned it a few times, if you've lost the first 15 to 20 pounds, you want to lose another 3 to 5, you've had to be pretty detailed to get here. You've had to be pretty detailed to be able to lose that amount of weight. And that means you've had to do it over a decent course of time, right? I mentioned before, at least a few months to do this the right way. And the longer you're in a calorie deficit, the longer you're dieting, it's obviously fatiguing to the body, but it's mentally fatiguing too, which often leads people then to slack on some of the details that really matter, right? So maybe you're just burnt out on tracking your food and you don't track things as meticulously, and then whether you realize it or not, some additional calories are coming into your diet that weren't there in the first place. Or maybe you're trying to hit a step count goal and you're just getting tired of doing it. And so you have some days during the week where, you know what, I didn't hit my step count goal, whatever. That happens too. These little tiny loopholes start to appear and they start to get bigger, and they're actually big contributors when you think about how much just those little things can add up on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. Those could be the little details that actually get you that last 5 pounds, but it's hard to maintain that for a long period of time. And so in talking through some of those common mistakes, you probably picked up on a lot of the things that you actually should do and the things that actually do work if you want to be able to lose these last few pounds. And it starts with strength training. In my opinion, if you are on the right type of strength training program, a well-rounded program with progressive overload built into it, where we're continuing to take the same intensity into each workout to build the body up, build muscle, build up your metabolism, it's going to make fat loss easier over time. Okay, it's going to prioritize muscle mass. You're going to your body composition better at the end of the process, because I don't think anybody wants to lose muscle mass. If you need to lose the last 5 pounds and somebody said, okay, we could do it easily and we'll just take 5 pounds of muscle, you probably would say no. So we don't want to do it that way. Obviously, that's like kind of an extreme example, just trying to paint the picture here of there's body fat, there's muscle mass. We want to lose as much body fat as possible, and strength training can help us do that. And then some of those little details, right? Walking, hitting your step count goal, that non-exercise activity is a big piece to the puzzle. I have found more success with step count goals as a form of cardio for my clients to lose body fat than any other form of cardio we could potentially do. So do not sleep on steps. Make sure that is something that you're prioritizing as well. And those little details, we don't want to be missing the step count goal every other day, right? We don't want to be skipping out on cardio or missing workouts. We don't want to lose track of those little details in your diet that you had been tracking all along. It's hard to keep going with this stuff. But like I said at the very beginning of the episode, if you want to do this, if you want to see this type of progress, the level of detail and the effort level that you have to put into it over time is going to have to go up. So it's been hard, but it's going to get harder, and you got to accept that. You don't have to be extreme, but you do have to be consistent with these little details that matter. And then understand that this is going to take time, right? What works is giving your body the time it needs to adapt and change. There's lots of things that, like, in our brains logically make sense to lose the rest of the body weight that you want to lose, the body fat that you want to lose, right? Reduce calories. Oh, in my head, that makes sense. Oftentimes, that's not the thing that actually ends up working. Oh, I just need to work out more. I need to burn more calories. I need to do more cardio. In your head, probably sounds like the logical right decision to make, but it rarely ends up working out that way. What ends up working out is typically what allows us to sustainably and consistently have the right habits. And then when we're able to do those habits over an extended period of time is when you eventually chip away at the rest of this weight loss goal that you have. And now the last thing I want to talk about is just posing this question to you of, is it actually worth it for you to put in the time and the effort to lose the last 5 pounds? Like, is that really worth it to you? And I want you to think about the effort required to get there, because losing the last 5 pounds is always the most challenging. And then also think about how you're going to feel when you get there, right? Oftentimes what I've found, and I'm not saying this is going to be the case for you, but oftentimes what I've found is that version of me that is 5 pounds lighter, 5 pounds less body fat, the effort and the work that has to go into getting there, balancing that against my quality of life, the things that I have to take care of on a daily basis as a business owner, as a coach, as a dad, as a husband, all these things that I have to do to not only get there, but then you got to maintain it, right? Nobody wants to lose the 5 pounds and then bring food back into your diet and then just lose those 5 pounds. That's what was the point of doing this entire process? What was the point of the last 2 months that it took for me to lose 5 pounds? So there's also an effort level after the fact of you being able to maintain it. So factor all of that in as you're thinking about this, because I think that's what people often lose sight on. And I don't know that for most people, it actually is worth it all the time to put all of that effort into losing the last 5 pounds, because when you get there, it's not like this magic moment where everything gets better. It's not. And if you've already lost 15, 20 or more pounds, you've done an amazing job at this point. I don't know that it's worth it to lose so much more flexibility and sustainably just to lose 5 pounds to be able to say that you lost 5 pounds. Nobody out there is going to notice that you're 5 pounds lighter. They've already noticed the 20 pounds that you've lost. So to get those last 5 pounds, it's only you that's going to notice. So is it worth it to you? Maybe it is. It's almost never been worth it to me and most of the clients that I've worked with. When we think about how much more work they're going to have to do, how much longer this process is going to take, how it might impact their family, how it might impact their energy levels and their mood, how it might impact how they're able to show up in their career, we often find out that maybe now is a better time for me to just transition to an extended period of maintenance. And personally, that's actually what I've found has worked best for me is like over the last 3 to 5 years, I've slowly brought my top end body weight down, but it hasn't been all in one fell swoop. I've gone through these periods of dieting down, and then I get to a point where I'm like, I think I'm done with this. I don't think more effort is going to make me happier at this point. So then I go into an extended maintenance period. I build my metabolism back up, allow for more flexibility, and sustainably do that for several months before maybe I go into another fat loss phase to bring that back down a little bit, bring that top level of my body weight down. And like I said, 3 to 5 years, it's been years of me doing this. And I think that often works out better for people than like really trying to suffer through a process that's pretty grueling just to lose a few more pounds. But it might be worth it for you. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but that's a question that you should consider for yourself as well. So at the end of the day, I hope this helps. There's so many little details that go into getting those last 3, 4, 5 pounds off of your waist, off of your midsection. It's something that everybody deals with. It's totally normal. And you're, like I said before, not an outlier in this entire topic, but hopefully this helps you understand what is required to get to where you want to go. And hopefully it's also helped you think about, is that actually where you want to go? So yeah, happy that we were able to answer this question in the podcast today. I hope this helped. And if it did, like I said before, make sure you subscribe wherever you are listening or watching. And I'm excited to dive into a new episode with you again next week. So thanks so much, and I will talk to you soon.